Right folks, good morning and welcome back to the channel. Right, this video, it might not please everybody, especially if you're a member of the police service, as I'm going to have a bit of a gripe about them. Now, I've never made any secret of the fact that I am a retired police officer. I did many years in the police here in West Yorkshire. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't. That's the same with most other jobs. Good points and bad points to the work. However, occasionally, as a civilian, or even when you're off duty, you have cause to call the police or to seek the assistance of the police, or support of the police, however you want to term it, and they let you down. So this video is about such an incident, such an occasion, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to be unique. So a few days ago, in the early hours of the morning, I'm at home, wife's upstairs in bed, dogs are snoozing at the side of me. I'm sat in the lounge, got the light on, usual bits and bats. I'm just doing a bit of work on my laptop, and I hear a bit of a noise outside. Now, initially I thought nothing of it. I thought maybe a fox or something of that nature, so I ignored it. And then maybe a minute or two later, I heard virtually the identical noise. So I've looked outside onto the drive where we've got a couple of cars parked and the garage is there. It's an integral garage. I looked out to the garage and nearly scared the living daylights out of me. There's three guys there, all sort of balaclavaed up, hoods up, and they're trying to break into the garage. So, you know, there's no way I'm going to go out. Anybody that sort of says they're going to go out and confront three unknown males in the dark, in the early hours of the morning, they're either a superhero or they're a bit daft. Now, me, I decided just to startle them, because I didn't know how far they'd got. Obviously, we're breaking into the garage. You don't know whether they're literally got the garage door open and there's somebody else or a couple of people already in the garage and there's just three outside keeping watch, or whether you don't know whether they're still trying to get in. So I decided I'd just bray on the window as hard as I could, and thankfully that had the desired effect. It got their attention, it startled them, and they looked at me in horror, the fact that I was still up at that time in the morning, and then they've legged it. So I've got straight on the phone, I've rung 999, I've had no issues with the police operator, the emergency operator. They took my details, and obviously while they're doing that, I know how it works. Obviously whilst they're typing up, some people might think, oh well, you know, they're wasting time here, but that's not how it works. Whilst they're typing details from you, either they themselves are also passing, as I understand it, segments of the log through to relevant districts for immediate dispatch, or they might have a colleague with them who's assisting them, and they'll do the same thing. They'll sort of get fed information by the initial person that's taking the call, you know, like ring an ambulance, ring the police, ring the fire, well, not ring the police, they are the police, ring the fire brigade, whatever it might be. So I've no dramas at all about the time scales involved for the initial officers attending. There were two officers attended whilst I was still on the phone with the police operator. I was stood outside by this point. My neighbour had heard me banging on the lounge window, and they'd been in bed, so they came out with one of their sons, and they were able to tell me that from their bedroom window they'd seen a vehicle drive off from parked outside somebody else's house on the street, and they themselves confirmed that there were three guys, or three lads, whatever. So no dramas there. Police arrive, tell them what's happened, we have a look at the garage door, we have a look at the cars, and the only damage that there is to the garage door where they've tried to force it. So the police don't deny that, they confirm it themselves, it's damaged. So that is as simple as it should get, or as complicated as it should get, depending on your point of view. However, burglary dwellings, or burglaries as a whole, but in particular burglary dwellings or attempt burglary dwellings, are a statistic, if you like, which the Home Office monitor quite closely, and they set targets for relevant districts, in that they're not really supposed to exceed, they're supposed to introduce, implement plans, projects, that type of thing, to reduce burglaries, especially during the colder and the darker nights, the winter nights basically, and to try to obviously keep these types of crimes down. Same with other types of crime as well, but on this occasion obviously we're talking about an attempt burglary. So there's no issues from the bobby, or one of the two bobbies that's arrived. You know, he's already telling me that, yeah, you can see that the door's damaged, they've tried to get in. And then he starts going on about CCTV footage, and I said, well, yeah, we've got some. I said, my wife's just checking that now. Right, okay. So he says, well, if it's confirmed that they were trying to break in, then we'll crime it. But he says, at the moment, he says, I'm going to record it, or I'm contemplating recording it as one of two things: either suspicious circumstances or an intelligence report. Now, I didn't point out at this point that I were an ex-bobby, because I don't feel that's necessary. It certainly shouldn't be necessary, and I certainly don't expect any preferential treatment. I've never had any as a bobby, even when I worked and had to report things for family members or myself. So I certainly don't expect any now. But I've got this cop in front of me now, and he's telling me he's not prepared, even though he can confirm that somebody's trying to get in the garage, he's not prepared to crime it as an attempt burglary. And to me, that has to be motivated by coercion, if you like, from the relevant force, West Yorkshire Police, to keep stats down for certain crime types, burglaries or acquisitive crime in particular. So we have a bit of discussion about it, and he's telling me, he says that, you know, obviously if you've got video footage that proves that they've been trying to get in, then we'll crime it. So I said to him, I says, well, hang on a second. I says, you don't investigate things to crime it, you crime things to investigate it, and there is a distinct difference. Years ago, certainly West Yorkshire, they wouldn't crime anything unless there was corroborative proof that a crime had occurred. But then, however many years ago it was, I've no idea, I can't remember, but certainly a significant number of years ago, all that changed. It could have been something to do with Home Office guidance, I don't know, Home Office crime recording stats and guidance, I've no idea anyway. But the rules changed basically. Anybody can ring up the police, and in the first instance you could say that you've been abducted by aliens, yeah, and you've been held hostage by them. And as far-fetched as that would sound, and this is not an exaggeration, the police would have to crime there an abduction, and then they would include in the MO that, you know, the victim alleges that he was abducted by aliens, and, you know, we all know what the outcome of that is. It's going to get no crime, or it's going to get filed. But what I'm trying to get at is that if a victim rings up and tries to report a crime because they believe or suspect that a crime has occurred, police forces, and have no reason to dispute that any other police forces are different to West Yorkshire, because this is something implemented by the Home Office, a crime has to be recorded. So if somebody rings up and says they've been assaulted, crime of assault goes on. Somebody says they've been burgled, crime of burglary goes on. It's as simple as that. Same with vehicle crime, whatever else it might be. So I'm trying to instill in this officer that I'm telling you that somebody's tried to get into this house via the, well, somebody's tried to get into the garage, so it's an attempt burglary, and the officer himself and his colleague are confirming and are satisfied that that's the case, but they're refusing to crime it. So we went around in circles a little bit, and reluctantly, in the end, I had to disclose, I felt compelled to disclose the fact that I was an ex-bobby. I knew what I was talking about. I wasn't just winging it and flanneling it. I knew what I was speaking about. I knew how the system worked, and basically you need to crime this as a burglary. Otherwise, if you crime this as, or not crime it, but if you report this or record this as suspicious circumstances, or quite simply an intelligence report, absolutely bugger all will happen with it. It'll get filed, and that'll be the end of it. Nobody will ever give it a second thought. Anyway, so he crimed it. pushed it through, or got the control room to push it through for a crime while he was there, and he gave me a crime number. So that's the first experience. You get an initial reasonable response from police when they turn up, and they look like they're interested, you know, they're saying the right things, they're doing the right things, but then when it comes down to push comes down to shove, they don't want to crime it. And the reason why they don't want to crime it basically is because if you can imagine how many crimes an officer might pick up on the workload, it can be quite significant. And I understand, I've been there, I've done it, I've read the book, I've got the t-shirt. They generally, bobbies do not get the time that they require to investigate their own crimes, never mind, you know, deal with other things that they get assigned on a daily basis. So I get that side of it, so don't get me wrong, I know that they're pushed for time, they're snowed under, the demands placed on them are horrendous, they're just sometimes quite simply not achievable. But from a victim's point of view, you want a good quality of service from the police, and you want them to do what you feel is their moral duty, you know, end of the day. So by this point now, I've got this crime number. This Bobby's already probably thinking I'm a bit of a prick, you know, trying to dictate to him what I should be doing, what he should be doing, and I wouldn't normally have done that, but I knew what the outcome would be otherwise. So we discussed then CCTV. I'm aware that there's numerous houses on our streets that have cameras, so he reassures me and he says, don't worry about that, son. I'll organise for PCSOs or somebody similar to start doing some CCTV inquiries and door-to-door inquiries the following day. There was no mention about scenes of crime or anything like that, and it's not raining, weather conditions are good, the garage surface for the door is dry and it's clean, so there could have been potential opportunities there, forensic opportunities. Anyway, they disappear after a while. They put a couple of notices, these calling cards, through some of the neighbours' addresses, asking them to contact the police if they've seen anything, heard anything, if they've got any CCTV, that type of thing, and that's it, they disappear. Following morning, I rang the police on 101 and just said that, you know, I've spoken to one of my neighbours, he's confirmed that he has received this calling card. He will have them on CCTV. His system is really, really good. It's high definition, it's colour, and you know, he's probably going to have some good footage of them. So I get told, yep, no problems, we'll get that chased up. And I mentioned scenes of crime, and I'm told, well, if the officers who had attended had have felt that scenes of crime had been appropriate, they would have requested it. Well, maybe, maybe not. You don't know, do you? So time goes on, 24 hours goes on, and the following night I get a phone call about 11:30 from the officer in charge, one of the two bobbies who'd initially attended, and he just said that he's going to organise Socko to come round. Am I going to be available the following day? Absolutely, I told him yes I am. So he said, right, he says, I'll put a request through now to Scenes of Crime Control, and they'll probably get in touch with you to get that organised. Alright, so I'll come back to you in a moment. So yeah, so I get a call from a chap from Socko Control, very helpful, very friendly. He rings me and we organise an approximate time for the following morning, and then a very nice lady came from Socko, did the necessary, but I mean that was 30 hours after the incident, and I've no qualms at all, no doubts in my mind at all, that the only reason that officer rang me the evening after the attempt burglary was because somebody, as a result of me ringing them the following morning after the incident, had sent a message to him sort of hinting that maybe they should have done this, maybe they should have done that. So anyway, Socko came, and where it stands at the moment is they did manage to get a fingerprint from the surface of the garage frame. Hopefully that will come back to a known criminal in the area. although you've got to be realistic, and I've got to appreciate that it could also be my fingerprint. They don't do elimination prints any longer, apparently, I was told, since COVID, and which is a bit ridiculous, really, because if they've lifted a fingerprint and they lift it, there's no point keeping it on file waiting for a hit from a suspect. If it's my fingerprint, is there? You know, that just seems like a waste of time and resources. But again, that's for them to deal with internally. So I've spoken to a few more people on the street by this point. We're now looking at 3 to 4 days after the attempt on the burglary to steal the bike. There's still been no house-to-house inquiries done by officers, and there's still been no CCTV inquiries. And even though, as I said earlier, I've identified many houses on the street with CCTV cameras, some of them quite elaborate systems, so there's potential, the missing opportunities there. So I'm not very happy, unfortunately, with the overall bigger picture of the police and how they're investigating this. You know, as I said, and I'll reiterate this just for anybody that's perhaps thinking I'm expecting special, special treatment, preferential treatment, I most certainly am not. All I want is for the police to take this seriously and try and investigate it. If at the end of the day it goes nowhere and they cannot detect anything, and I'll be honest with you, that is probably going to be the outcome, then fair enough, I'll accept that wholeheartedly. But you've got to have a go and try. You've got to put some effort into it, and you've got to try and do the best that you can for your own sort of self-esteem as a police officer. You know, it's developmental for the bobbies, isn't it? You know, there's a lot of bobbies that are working on teams these days that are relatively young in service, and something like this, it's good experience for them, investigating it, doing fingerprint submissions, and arresting people, interviewing people, going to CPS, etc, etc. So I'm going to wait and see anyway what happens. Let's get past these horses. I didn't know how good they were with bikes. They're alright today. No worries. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm a bit disappointed. Like I said, I don't expect miracles, and nor do I expect preferential treatment, but bike theft is big business. You know, and it's disappointing if somebody steals your bike and you don't get it back. I mean, I know it's not an expensive bike, this necessarily, but it's my pride and joy. You know, I love the bike to bits. I've had some really good fun on it. I've travelled all over the country on it. I've done, I've only had it 6 months, and I've done, as near as damn it, I think just a smidgen under 5,000 miles on it, and that excludes the mileage I've done on the other bike. So yeah, so I'm a bit disappointed really in how this has been investigated, especially, as I said, when bike theft is such big business. You know, they get stolen, they get stripped down for parts, sold on eBay and other such places. Sometimes they'll get shipped abroad, sometimes they're kept and they're used by criminals to commit further offences on. Putting on top of that, obviously, I've now got a damaged garage door, and somebody's coming to repair that tomorrow, but that's additional expense that I'm having to outlay. I already had some security measures in the garage, which I'm not going to discuss for obvious reasons on camera, and I have added to those, so if anybody were to get in my garage, it's going to be even harder for them now than it would have been previously. But yeah, you certainly need to introduce or implement some safety and security measures. But yeah, so that's it really. So I'll keep you all informed of what goes on with that, but I don't expect anything miraculous to occur from it. But the purpose of this video is just to sort of, if anybody did need a reminder, and I'm sure they don't in reality, but you know, do what you can, do your absolute utmost to secure your bikes, especially if you've got something like this. I mean, I've had other bikes in the garage, my GS's, my K1600s, nobody's ever shown any interest in it, but this, you know, it does get people giving it second glances. So yeah, you know, if you can afford it, use as many security measures as you can. But as I said, I'll keep you all informed with how I progress with the police and their investigation and their cooperation. And if anybody has experienced any similar incidents with the police where perhaps they've either been reluctant to crime a theft of bike, attempt theft of bike, a burglary where a bike's been stolen, or an attempt burglary, anything like that, if you've experienced anything like that, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a comment down below. Don't go into specific details, but by all means just give me a very brief summary of how crap the police were. But on the other side of the coin as well, if the police have done an absolute sterling job, and let's be honest, there are many exceptional officers out there, you know, the service is only sort of ruined by a few sometimes, but if you've encountered an exceptional service from a particular police officer or police force, then yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could just drop me some details down below as well about that and let me know about it. So that's it, folks, really. Sad times. I'm glad they didn't get it. It is going to get moved to another location. I've already got that organised. So whilst I appreciate that somebody could still break into the garage in the hope that the bike is in there, if they do, yes, they'll cause some damage perhaps to the garage door, but they won't be able to get away with the bike because it's going to be secured elsewhere, somewhere far more secure than my garage, and my garage is pretty secure as well. So folks, thanks very much for listening to me rambling on for the last however many minutes that was, maybe 15-20 minutes, having a bit of a bitch about things. Take care, look after your bikes, look after yourself, and I'll see you all on the next video. Ta-da for now.